Over 200 giant figures are carved into the California desert, and nobody knows who made them. Some are so huge you can't even see them from the ground. You need a plane. Now let that sink in. Thousands of years ago, people spent generations scraping images longer than a blue whale into the earth, aimed straight at the sky. And when we finally ask why, the answer is a chilling, we don't know. But here's what should really keep you up at night. That's just one of them. Scattered across California are stone walls with no builder, caves covered in symbols no one can read, and circles of rock that experts still argue about today. 13 real places, 13 unsolved mysteries, all hiding in plain sight in one American state. Stay till the end, because number one may be the oldest and strangest of them all. We poured hours into digging up these mysteries for you, so do us one tiny favor back. Drop a comment telling us which structure you dared to visit at midnight. And if this gave you chills, subscribing is just one click. One click that means the world to us. Hit it, and let's keep uncovering the unexplained together. Number 13, the desert cairns. We start small, literally. All across the Colorado and Mojave deserts, you'll find piles of stones stacked into shapes called cairns, alongside long, deliberate lines of rocks laid out in careful rows known as alignments. At first glance, they look like nothing, just rocks. But stay with me because these rocks were arranged on purpose by human hands a very long time ago. Here's what makes them strange. Many of these cairns and rows sit right beside the giant desert figures we'll get to later, and they're connected by ancient footpaths worn into the ground. Archaeologists believe they may have been part of ceremonial journeys, sacred walks that people made across the open desert, but the exact purpose? Lost. And that's the part that gets under your skin. Some of these rock lines march straight across flat ground and simply stop, leading to nothing you can see today. Some circles have no center, no obvious meaning, no story attached. Whoever built them knew exactly why. We don't. That knowledge slipped away centuries ago, and all that's left is the stone. Think about it. Someone knelt in that heat, chose each rock, and set it down with intention. And their message is still sitting there, waiting, unread. Try this yourself. The next time you're hiking in the California desert, slow down and look at the ground. Search for stones that seem too orderly to be natural. A line that's too straight, a circle that's too perfect. If you find one, you may be standing on a path someone walked over 1,000 years ago. But here's the golden rule. Look, never touch. Never move a single stone. These are protected sites, and once the pattern is disturbed, that clue is gone forever. Some mysteries are meant to be witnessed, not rearranged. Number 12, Tahquitz Canyon's ancient waterworks. Just outside Palm Springs sits Tahquitz Canyon, and at first it looks like a postcard. A stunning 60-foot seasonal waterfall crashing down between desert cliffs. But hidden in this canyon is something far older and far stranger than the view. Tucked into the rock are ancient irrigation systems and weathered rock art, built and painted by the Cahuilla people long ago. And here's the first puzzle. These were desert dwellers, living in one of the driest places imaginable, yet they engineered reliable water channels with a precision that still impresses experts today. How they did it, with the tools they had, is a genuine question archaeologists wrestle with. But the waterworks aren't even the eeriest part. It's the legend. The canyon is named after Tahquitz, a powerful Cahuilla shaman said to have turned dangerous. And as the story goes, he was banished into a cave deep within these very walls. To this day, locals swear they hear strange sounds echoing out of the canyon, low rumbles they can't quite explain. Picture standing there at dusk, the waterfall hissing, the cliffs closing in around you, and somewhere in the rock behind you, a legend says something was sealed away. Whether you believe it or not, the feeling is real, and people who've hiked it describe a heaviness in the air they can't shake. So the mystery here is layered, an engineering marvel we can't fully explain, wrapped inside a legend that refuses to die. Where to go? The Tahquitz Canyon Visitor Center runs a beautiful 1.8-mile loop trail that guides you past the cultural sites, the rock formations, and right up to that waterfall. Bring plenty of water, go early to beat the desert heat, and keep your eyes and ears open. You may notice more than you expect. Number 11. The Ripley Geoglyph Group. Remember those giant desert figures I keep teasing? Here's your first real taste of them. Because they don't appear just once in California, they appear again. Across the Colorado River, near the small town of Ripley, lies a whole second cluster of enormous ground figures. The Ripley Geoglyph Group. Same haunting style, same impossible scale, same total echoing silence about their purpose. These figures were made the same way as the famous ones, by scraping away the dark, sun-baked stones on the desert surface to reveal the lighter earth underneath, drawing shapes so vast they're best understood from above. Humans, animals, abstract forms, all stretched across the ground like messages left for something in the sky. And here's the detail that gives archaeologists genuine chills. No native group living along the Colorado River has ever stepped forward to say, "Our people made these." Some communities say their ancestors used the figures, honored them, walked to them, but creating them? That claim simply isn't there. The builders and their reasons have vanished into deep time. That's the pattern you're going to hear over and over today, so let it sink in now. These mysteries weren't lost by accident, buried by mudslides, or erased by war. In many cases, the knowledge itself, the why, the who, the meaning, just faded out of human memory. The art survived, the story didn't. Stand at the edge of the Ripley figures, and the scale hits you all at once. Someone organized enormous effort to make something they couldn't fully see from the ground, aimed at a viewer we can't identify, for a purpose we can't name. Two separate clusters of giants in one stretch of desert, and both of them still completely unexplained. And believe me, we're just getting started. Number 10. Petroglyph Point, Tula Lake. Now we travel all the way up to Northern California, to Lava Beds National Monument, where something extraordinary rises straight out of the flat landscape. A tuff ring, a strange volcanic formation created roughly 275,000 years ago by an explosion of magma meeting water. That alone is jaw-dropping, but it's what covers this cliff that lands it on our list. Carved into its soft volcanic face are more than 5,000 individual petroglyphs, making this one of the largest concentrations of rock art anywhere in California. 5,000. Spirals, shapes, figures, symbols, layered across the stone by generations of native artists over an enormous span of time. Here's the mystery that stops archaeologists in their tracks. When many of these carvings were made, this cliff wasn't standing in a dry field like it is today. It was surrounded by the deep waters of ancient Tule Lake, which means the artists couldn't just walk up and carve. They had to approach the rock by boat, steady themselves on the water, reach up and carve, and then do it again and again, thousands of times across countless years. Just imagine the dedication. Balancing in a canoe on a cold lake, chipping symbols into a cliff, for reasons we can only guess at. Was it sacred? A record of visions? A message to the water itself? We honestly don't know. The meaning drifted away with the people who understood it. Practical tip. The good news is you can actually see this one. Petroglyph Point is reachable by car within the monument, and there's a dedicated viewing area right at the base of the cliff. Bring a pair of binoculars. The highest carvings are dizzyingly detailed, and through the lenses you'll spot symbols that most casual visitors walk right past. Number 9. The stone circles near Weed. Head north to the town of Weed, California, and you'll stumble onto something that looks almost too bizarre to be real. Spread across a 600-acre field are hundreds upon hundreds of circular rings of stones, scattered over the landscape like the giant footprints of something that walked through long ago and never came back. For years, people simply called them the mysterious stone circles, and honestly, the nickname fits. Stand in that field and you're surrounded by rings of rock in every direction, each one distinct, all of them silent. The obvious question hits immediately: did people make these? And if so, why so many? Here's where it gets wonderfully tangled. The leading scientific explanation is that these circles are a natural feature tied to something called Mima mounds, low dome-shaped rises in the earth. and that would settle it, except for one thing. The origin of Mima mounds themselves is still one of geology's ongoing debates. Scientists can't fully agree on how they form. Theories range from ancient earthquakes shaking the soil into shape to countless generations of burrowing rodents slowly pushing Earth into mounds over thousands of years. So sit with the strangeness of this one. It's a mystery wrapped inside another mystery. Strange circles of stone resting on strange mounds of Earth, and experts can't confidently explain either layer. That's what makes this site so quietly unsettling. There's no legend, no giant figure, no dramatic cliff, just an enormous field of ordinary rocks, arranged in a way that shouldn't happen on its own. Number 8. Fern Cave. We return to Lava Beds National Monument, but this time we go underground. Beneath the surface, the ancient lava flows here, created a hidden world of lava tube caves, long, dark tunnels carved by rivers of molten rock thousands of years ago. And deep inside one of them lies a chamber unlike any other. Fern Cave. Step inside and the walls come alive. They're covered in pictographs, painted images in black, red, and white, packed together so densely they seem to crowd every surface of the stone. This isn't a scattered carving here and there. This is an entire chamber transformed into a canvas by human hands, glowing in the dim light that filters down through the cave's mouth. How did they make these colors so long ago? The black was created from charcoal, ground and mixed into paint. The reds came from natural mineral pigments dug from the earth. Archaeologists believe these images are deeply connected to vision quests and sacred rituals, moments when a person went alone into the dark, seeking guidance, power, or a message from the spirit world. But the precise meaning of the symbols? Unknown. We can describe what they're made of. We can guess at their purpose, but the actual message painted onto these walls remains locked away, spoken in a visual language we've never been able to fully translate. What sets Fern Cave apart is its fragility and its sacredness. It's considered so precious and so easily damaged that access is tightly restricted, protected on behalf of the native communities who hold it sacred. And maybe that's fitting. Sometimes the deepest mysteries are the ones we're not even allowed to walk up to, the ones that stay hidden in the dark, exactly as they were meant to be. Number 7. The Topock Maze. Near the desert town of Needles, California, the ground itself becomes a puzzle. Sprawling across roughly 18 acres is a vast pattern of parallel gravel rows, raked and arranged into long, winding lines, a formation known as the Topock Maze, or the Mojave Maze. The Mojave people shared something haunting about it with early researchers. They said that warriors returning from battle, or anyone carrying a haunting spirit, would walk into the maze on purpose. By weaving back and forth through the twisting rows, they believed the evil spirit trailing them would grow confused, lost, and finally be left behind in the tangle of paths. You walked in burdened, you walked out cleansed. It's a powerful image, but here's the twist that keeps experts arguing to this day. Archaeologist Ruth Musser Lopez uncovered strong evidence that at least part of the maze may not be ancient at all. It may date to 19th century gravel harvesting for railroad construction. Her clue? Old footpaths approach the gravel rows and stop right at them, but never cross them, suggesting the gravel lines were laid down after the paths were already in use. So which is it? A sacred spirit cleansing maze, thousands of years old? Or the leftover scars of railroad work from the 1800s? Or, most tantalizing of all, both, layered on top of each other, ancient meaning tangled up with modern industry. And here's the detail that seals its place on this list. Even the Mojave themselves say they don't know its true origin. The tradition of using it survived, but the memory of who first made it, and when, did not. 18 acres of winding gravel, sitting quietly in the desert, half sacred site, half industrial mystery, and fully unexplained. Number 6. Skyrock Bishop. High in the volcanic tablelands near the town of Bishop, resting on top of an enormous boulder, hides one of California's most breathtaking mysteries, a place so striking that photographers travel from around the world just to stand beside it. It's called Skyrock. Here's what makes it unlike almost every other rock carving on Earth. The vast majority of petroglyphs are chiseled into vertical walls, faces you stand in front of and look at. But Skyrock's carvings do something completely different. They're etched across the top of the boulder, facing straight up at the heavens. Spirals, circles, and mysterious figures, laid out so that you actually have to climb on top of the rock to see them at all. From the ground, you'd walk right past and never know they were there. These carvings were created by the ancestors of the Paiute Shoshone peoples, likely more than 1,000 years ago. And that single design choice raises a question that's impossible to shake. Why point the art at the sky? Was it meant to be seen by the stars, by the sun as it crossed overhead, by the moon, or by something the ancient artists believed was looking down on them? We simply don't know. But the effect is undeniable. Today, photographers line up shots of the Milky Way arching directly over Skyrock, and standing there beneath that river of stars, staring at symbols aimed straight up into it, it becomes very hard to believe the placement was an accident. If you go, the exact location is deliberately kept vague to protect it from damage and crowds. Tread lightly, stay off fragile ground, and never, ever touch or chalk the carvings. Even the oils on your skin can slowly destroy art that has survived for 1,000 years. Number 5. The Anza-Borrego Rock Rings. Deep inside Anza-Borrego Desert State Park, the largest state park in California, the desert floor holds a quiet secret that has puzzled experts for decades. Scattered across the sun-baked ground are hundreds of carefully arranged rock circles. Not one or two, hundreds. And archaeologists genuinely cannot say for certain why they're there. At first glance, they're easy to miss. They look almost casual. Rings of stones, sitting in the dirt, weathered by centuries of wind and heat. But the moment you understand what you're looking at, everything shifts. Every single one of those stones was deliberately placed by a human being. Someone knelt down, selected each rock, and set it exactly where it still sits today. So what were they for? This is where the mystery deepens. Some experts believe the rings may have anchored the edges of shelters, holding down brush or hides against the desert wind. Others think they marked sleeping spots, or food caches, or ceremonial spaces used for rituals we can no longer identify. Each theory sounds reasonable on its own, but with hundreds of these circles spread across the landscape, no single explanation manages to cover them all. Some fit one idea, some fit another, many fit none, and that's the strange, humbling truth of Anza-Borrego. This isn't a hidden cave or a restricted military site. It's out in the open, under the wide desert sky, proof of just how much unexplained human activity is simply lying around, waiting, in plain sight. Practical tip. This is one of the best places for beginners to start their own mystery hunt. Many features sit near marked trails, so you don't need special access. Check in at the visitor center first for guidance, and plan your trip for the cooler months. Summer here is genuinely dangerous in the heat. Number 4. The Coso Petroglyphs. Now we reach a place so extraordinary that few people on Earth will ever be allowed to see it. Hidden deep inside the Naval Air Weapons Station at China Lake lies Little Petroglyph Canyon, home to what may be the single greatest concentration of rock art in the entire Western Hemisphere. We're not talking about a few dozen carvings, or even a few hundred. We're talking about tens of thousands. Walk through this canyon, and the walls close in around you, covered from top to bottom in ancient images. Bighorn sheep by the hundreds, hunters wielding weapons called atlatls, and countless abstract symbols, spirals, grids, rows of dots, whose meaning has been completely lost to time. Some of these carvings may reach back an astonishing 10,000 years, making them older than the pyramids, older than nearly anything you can name. And here is the debate that scholars still cannot put to rest. Who actually made them? One camp of researchers points to the Paiute Shoshone peoples and their ancestors, who have lived in this region for millennia. But another camp argues that a completely unknown, earlier population may have carved the very first images, long before. The trouble is, the dating just isn't precise enough to settle the argument, and the living native communities are, understandably, private about their sacred traditions. So the question hangs in the air, unanswered. Tens of thousands of images, 10,000 years of carving, and we still can't agree on the most basic fact of all: whose hands held the tools? How to see it? Because it sits on an active military base, Access is strictly restricted and arranged only through the Macharongo Museum in Ridgecrest. If you ever get the chance to join one of their tours, take it, because the overwhelming majority of people on this planet never, ever will. Number 3. The Coso mystery you didn't expect. Let's stay right here in Coso for a moment longer, because we've only uncovered half of its mystery. We know where the carvings are. We can count them, map them, photograph every single one. But the deepest puzzle isn't the art on the walls. It's the reason behind it. Why did people spend thousands of years covering this canyon in symbols? And here's what makes it so maddening. The experts have proposed at least 6 competing theories, and they still can't agree on which one is right. The first is hunting magic. The idea that carving a bighorn sheep would magically help a hunter take his prey in real life. The second is increased rites. Sacred rituals meant to make the game herds grow and multiply, ensuring the people never went hungry. The third points to shamans, suggesting the images are records left behind after a powerful vision quest. The fourth sees them as markers of rites of passage, moments when a young person crossed into adulthood. The fifth reads them as tools for reinforcing social identity, who belonged and who did not. And the sixth imagines them as visual storyboards, used by elders to pass down oral history to the next generation. 6 theories, 1 canyon, 0 agreement. Now really let that land. We have the technology to date the rock to within a range of centuries. We can trace every figure with modern tools. And yet we may never truly step inside the minds of the people who made them. As the researchers themselves admit, the world of these ancient artists was so unlike our own that fully understanding it might be genuinely impossible. That's the haunting part of Coso. The more we measure it, the more its true meaning slips through our fingers. Number 2. The East Bay Mystery Walls. Now we come to the mystery that's practically in people's backyards, the one that has quietly baffled an entire region for over a century. Winding through the hills of the San Francisco Bay Area, from Berkeley down through Milpitas and stretching all the way out toward Chico and Red Bluff, are miles of ancient stone walls. Built without mortar, some using boulders that weigh over a ton. For generations, locals have stood beside these walls and asked the same simple, unanswerable questions. Who built them, and why? They're too broken and scattered to be fences. They're too short to have been defensive barriers. And here's the kicker. There is not one single scrap of written record anywhere explaining how they got there. Now, I promised you honest, science-forward answers, so here it is. Recent lichen testing suggests that many of these walls were actually built between 1850 and 1880 during California's early American ranching era, possibly by Chinese, Mexican, or Native American laborers hired to clear the land and corral livestock. Cultural experts at the East Bay Regional Park District lean toward this practical explanation too. But, and this is exactly why the walls stay on our list, no document names a single builder. The walls sometimes lead nowhere sensible, and some researchers still believe portions could be far, far older. So even the solved version leaves you standing on a windswept hillside, staring at a ton of stacked stone, asking, then why is there no record at all? Go see it for yourself. You actually can. Ed R. Levin County Park and Mission Peak Regional Preserve both have accessible sections of wall. Hike up, place your hand on the cold stone, feel its weight, and decide, with your own eyes, whether you buy the official story. Number 1. The Blythe Intaglios. And now we arrive back where this whole journey began, with the giants. North of Blythe, California, etched into the bare desert floor, lie the legendary Blythe Intaglios, colossal figures of humans, animals, and a sweeping spiral, the largest of them stretching an incredible 171 feet from end to end. They were made the same ancient way, by scraping away the dark surface stones to reveal the lighter earth beneath. And they are so vast, so impossibly large, that for centuries the outside world had no idea they existed. No one noticed them, until a pilot spotted them from the air in 1932. Think about that. Figures the size of buildings, hiding in plain sight, invisible to everyone on the ground. Scientists have studied the wider group of figures using radiocarbon dating, and the results are staggering. Dates ranging from around 900 BCE all the way to 1200 CE. That means people may have been creating these giants for over 2,000 years. And yet the single most important question remains completely unanswered. The official record itself states they were created for an as-yet unknown reason. Researchers believe they may be ceremonial, perhaps tied to ancient creation myths and the great mourning ceremonies of the region. But once again, that chilling pattern returns. No group claims to have made them. Stand out in that silent desert. Look down at a figure longer than a blue whale, so enormous you can barely take it in from the ground, and feel the full weight of it. An entire people poured generations of effort into a message aimed at the sky, and we still cannot read it. The Blythe Intaglios are now protected on the National Register of Historic Places, fenced off after early visitors caused damage. So please, if you visit, stay outside the fences. We've already lost far too much of the story. So there you have it. 13 ancient California structures that continue to stump the sharpest minds we have. Desert giants aimed at the stars. Stone walls with no builder, caves full of symbols no one can read, and circles of rock, by the hundreds, whispering questions we still can't answer. If there's one thing to carry with you, it's this. These mysteries weren't lost in some far-off exotic land. They're sitting in one American state, some of them just a short hike from a parking lot. Proof that the world is still far stranger and far older than we like to admit. History didn't hand us a neat, finished story. It left us fragments, scattered across the desert and the hills, daring us to figure out the rest, and maybe that's the real magic of it. In an age where we can map the ocean floor and photograph distant galaxies, these silent structures remind us that some questions are still wide open, waiting, patiently, for someone curious enough to keep asking. We poured hours into digging up these mysteries for you. So do us one tiny favor back. Drop a comment telling us which structure you'd dare to visit at midnight. And if this gave you chills, subscribing is just one click. One click that means the world to us. Hit it, and let's keep uncovering the unexplained together. One last note, every site here is either sacred to native peoples, legally protected, or both. This video is for educational and historical interest only. Always respect posted rules, never touch or remove artifacts, and check access requirements before visiting. Interpretations of these sites are still debated by archaeologists, and this reflects current research, not final answers.